This is a backpack puppet overview. What I'd like to do is go over materials and some techniques with you, especially for fastening things, and where you can get these materials. So you can build your own frames, but it's hardly worth it because people want to get rid of these old school backpacks. These were all either donated to Backbone Campaign, or I've let people know that I need them and they come to my house, or the local thrift store. I talked to the manager and they put some aside. So all three of these together are probably less than $4 to come across, and you're way ahead of the game. Basic structure is here. You got your two vertical poles, and those come up. We extend those and build off of that. So everything about backpack puppets is essentially getting up high. This is here. To be in a parade or in a crowd, anything below this height is not going to get seen. So we're trying to get that next 6-8 feet. That is what, when we were talking about media stuff, and it's obviously you're going for a big splash. You got to get up. You got to get up, and this is an easy way to do it. So that's the basis. They're easy to come by, so you should do it. Here's the number one thing that we use to get up is bamboo, because it's light. It's very, very strong, and it's usually free. People who have bamboo spreads, so they have to get rid of bamboo occasionally, so you can go get it for free typically. PVC is also used. PVC is much more flexible. Not to say bamboo is very flexible, especially the smaller sizes. This holds a nice bend. That's one nice thing about it. Problems with this: if you drill through this in too large a diameter, that's going to break at a bad time. But you can screw through this and bolt to it, or just screw into it like wood with a wood screw. So it's good for holding things. It's got its uses. It's also very cheap. Even in the store new, this might only be like $3. Surprisingly cheap. And then there's wood. Is another way for going up. Wood's heavy. Wood's typically free, which is a nice thing. And it's very easy to work with because all our tools most of your tools that you're going to come across with are designed to be worked with wood. Pay attention when you're building with wood for stuff like this, because if this has got some weight on the end, that's where it's going to break. But you can't do that down here. It's much, much, much stronger because there's no knot. So keep that in mind. Different species of woods are better. This is cedar. It's just very light. There's less wood there, which also means it's less strong. Strength is not the overriding principle in a lot of these materials. You have to keep in mind what your materials can do, but a more important consideration is lightness. And in that light, I'd like to show you this diabolical structure. So it's perfect because it's done and it works. So really no complaints, but I'm gonna nitpick. Here's another one of our fabulous materials. This is free. This is just from a couch. You see, and you cut it with a electronic turkey knife. That makes quick work of this. Those knives don't last very long when you do it like that. They burn out. But they're usually $1 or $2 at the thrift store. So this is great. This is a lot of wood. So already you've got some weight. They've got some, it looks like aluminum poles here. So something I don't have an example of, but you come across a lot. People are getting rid of tents because they're missing a single tent pole. Well, then there's another 5 tent poles there, and those create very nice large radiuses. They're aluminum, and they're very light. They don't rust. If you take tent poles and you put duct tape at the joint, that's not coming apart under normal stresses. That's going to be a very strong pull, very hard to pull that apart. So that becomes a good unit. That probably could have been done here, but this is essentially the same thing. The tires are just for fullness, body.
Yeah, free.
This is a very inventive, free way to do it. Another way is to take bamboo and split it. You get much smaller, but you take this, you split it down, and you split that again, and then you finally have strips. These strips you can bend, tape it here, tape it here. Now you've got a hoop out here. You can create virtually any size shape you want. You can create a torso with these very thin strips of bamboo, and that sculpting, you want to create a torso, is very fast, and a decent amount of detail, definitely enough detail for a puppet. Now the other thing that's happened here is you had a head hanging off here, so all the weight, probably the head's a little heavy, it's over there, the count head, you don't have to get it, but they've added weight here to keep you from falling over. Now there's a certain range that people are going to be comfortable walking, and they had to add weight to do that. Now, people are not going to want to do this puppet a lot if they've already done it because of how much weight is involved. So whenever we're doing this, like, the lighter the better. It really helps the people who are going to be actually puppeting, and if you want them to puppet again, because very often you are asking people with these puppets to wear this when you've got another obligation, and the best thing that you could possibly have is the guy who did it last time or the woman who did it last time, because they're going to know the puppet better and they're going to feel more comfortable about actually making it move and using the puppet. So the lighter, you're better the chances of getting that person to actually do it again. But otherwise, it's perfect. It's awesome. The head just slides over that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think that part of it was that the counterweight. If you notice, the head is pretty far down, so it's about a 13-foot puppet, and so yeah, it's pretty tall up there. There's a lot of, and it's 3 people. There's separate people on the arms usually.
Mm-hmm.
But it's heavy.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, there's no way around it. I mean, you're going to put paper mache up there. A lot of times people do just a 2D face, something like that big. That's very light, and that's good. It's had all the problems of 2D and all the advantages of 2D. This is just like a typical joint. We use webbing. All this webbing came out of the garbage. So we had a ski factory, backpack factory on the island, and they threw out stuff like this all the time. So finding a way, this is your arm joint, to create a loose movement is just to get from here to here and attach that. That could be a through bolt. In this case, they're both wood. In this case, they could be a wood screw or sheet metal screws also, and put a washer on that, and that's not likely to come out. You have to be careful of splitting the wood. Ideally, you would pre-drill, but we don't always pre-drill, and it usually works. Through bolting. Another when you attach it, if you have washers, great. But if you don't, bottle caps are washers. So a sharp wood screw is just going to, with your drill, is going to go right through that. This is too long. People will hate you if you do this. There is an answer for that. If those are the only size screws you've got, and I don't have a hammer on me, but you give that a sharp smack with a hammer and that screw's going to break right off. So other ways to fasten, you know, if you can get a bolt through here also and tighten that up, great, because that can come apart. That's always an advantage to these things. Screwing it and rivets. Maybe I could draw. The pop rivet gun, well, you got to drill through both things. You stick your rivet through, and then you put a washer here. And then when you squeeze it, this end bulbs up and pulls these things two together. This goes in, and you end up with that, and this unit doesn't come apart anymore. It's a little tricky getting the holes lined up. You got to drill them and get everything. So it's a little persnickety, but it's a fantastic way to get thin stuff together, because you're not going to get a screw through that, and dealing with little tiny bolts and screws is a little tough for that. You don't have to, but you could like take a yogurt container and cut out, take your knife, just make a little square and put that in between to make it more likely to move. Yeah, because the rivet's going to suck it up fairly tight. That's its job. But these also, this is another way to create less friction and also to be a washer as well. Plenty of people use these to be a washer. Use the bottle caps. Duct tape, of course, is great. It lasts a few years before it gets dry and crumbly, and it's not likely to fall off all at once. It'll be a slow deterioration. For a lot of these projects, that's totally acceptable. You know, you got to get it done, and you don't kind of want to be there forever. If you've got some duct tape, then go ahead and use it. Better for most situations is bike tires, and I just went to the bike shop a little while ago, and the bike guy here on the island puts them outside so that we don't bother them. So about 5% of these have green goo in them, and you don't know which 5% that is.
You don't want the green goo?
No, it's just gross. It's like probably toxic, I don't know. But people put it in there to keep the punctures. So you just cut out the air thing. Throw that away. Now this is ready to go. These thin ones, like for 10-speed bikes, ready to go for what you want. If you cut open a fatter one like this, you can then come back and make thinner strips, which are much more appropriate for tying smaller stuff. You can get even thinner than this. So you wouldn't want to take a big fat one on a really small joint. You'd be better off making these. So there's these will last about 5 years or so in the sun. So it lasts a long time before you have to redo it. Another advantage of this is they can come undone, and when you when we tie these, you could just do that standard overhand knot, the knot that you don't even know is the name of it. You just go over and over twice. That's fine. That's going to hold. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get out, but if you want to, say you've attached the shoulders of a puppet like a cross piece, and then decide that you want to make it look like that, you could take it off and lower one, and then retie it, and now you're good to go. So it's changeable, and that's a good deal. Baling wire is not so great. It's heavy. It rusts and it pokes people. So it's got a lot of great uses. This isn't really one of them. Plumber's tape is good for joining things together. It's got a million places to screw down. If I want to create a guide, say I want this guy to slide through here, I could just go like this, screw it down here and here, and then that's there, or I could, small amount of movement. Or if I want to attach it more firmly to the backpack, this stuff is great. It's in every hardware store. Likewise, hose clamps, which aren't totally cheap, but they're so worth it. With hose clamps, I don't know if I could stand this up in here. There we go. So now, this makes really joining these two things together quite fast. You put that in and tighten it down. You're going to get the most strength attaching these guys, not here in the center, but if you do one at the lowest point you can and one at the highest point you can. This is a good time to consider where the weight of your puppet's going to be. If it's going to have a forward head, like the puppet that we're looking at doing now is a vulture, and that's one of their distinguishing features, is that the head is forward. So we may want to tilt this, and so I might need a block here to keep that out and a block here, and then tie this down. Or I could put this in here. You probably don't need this for strength or weight, so a block might be better, or anything else that you can get in there to create the angle you want. It might be with a raven puppet, vulture, sorry, that we want to put this weight back so that we could pulley the head down. So create a higher point further back and our weight further back, because the head is going to be so far out. So you all know physics. Like the head hanging here weighs 5 pounds, but now if I'm trying to hold that head now here when it's twice as far out, that's a lot more force down. So keep that in mind. Like that head is going to disrupt the weight distribution more if it's much more if it's out there.
I don't know if I can actually.
Yeah, we'll try that. So that far away is a much bigger deal than here. But even there, that far out in front of you is a lot of weight. There's going to have to be some counterbalance in the back, and you may consider in the design of your puppet. This is your backpack. Have more weight back here, but a little bit of weight back here might be better than stacks of weight right here. For the same reason that the further you increase this moment arm, it's called, the further away you are from the fulcrum, the less weight you need to affect the same amount of lift here.
What would attach the top of the bird's head, and where would that next point of contact after, say it was a string up on the top, where would that attach? To a pole that reaches forward, or a pole that's up directly behind?
I try to get it directly behind me. I try to get that weight so that it's now putting that weight back here rather than up there. So like where something is like pushing it forward, but the weight is actually being captured up here rather than forward, so that you're not going too far. And I mean, you might not get it right the first time, but there's, say you go up here to a pulley. Well, if this is rubber tied here, maybe this didn't work. So now we put it back here.
Yeah.
So try it out. Well, the idea to give the puppet some movement rather than just be a static character would be to create the entire puppet built off a backpack. This is a human. Backpack here and a pivot point so that the top could rotate down and the tail up, to create some movement as if the vulture is coming down to eat. And so right now we are trying to come up with a mechanism that would allow this head to go forward rather than straight down like gravity would want.
Well, it's not going to have extended wings. I think we're going to sacrifice that idea, part of it. But what Jim and I were talking about was having like a person hold a trapeze bar type handle in front of them here and be able to pull it down, and it go through a pulley. and actually, it wants to tilt forward. And when the person pulls the pulley, this line pulls the tail from out to in. And what we're also just trying to figure out is, okay, if we also have, when they let up on the trapeze, it also extends the neck, then we get that reaching gesture from the bird. What Jim was describing is the problem we're trying to solve is how does that reaching not just look like a straight down. Now, obviously, if the pivot point is here, it is going to reach out this way, but the head is going to want to fall down.
If you had it on the head on the stick, and you had a little tied string there to a hoop right here, static hoop, and then down to the tail, or else to wings too. When you pushed out the head, it would pull up the tail.
I like coming back to this same point. Yeah. I like that.
Wow, like
Head goes out. And it's actually less stuff, and it's simpler, so it's better.
Simpler.
Yeah.
I don't know which way you want.
Well, the less we have, like going 90 degrees pulleys, that stuff's all puts a lot of stress on this very lightweight equipment. It's hard. It's hard on it.
Keep it simple, stupid. I like that.
Yeah.